And also, there's a ticklish issue when it comes also to appointing, you know, your children, your sons, your relatives into government. And I'm trying to put also my ducks in a row here so that I can get my script straight to just give you that story of what is happening currently, where we're given to understand that Jubilee and CORD leaders are trading accusations over the nominated candidates to the East African Legislative Assembly. Both sides of a political divide pointed fingers at each other over some of the nominees that include the son of a party leader, and the former politicians and candidates submitted their applications to the Joint House Committee on Selection of EALA members at County Hall. Deputy President William Ruto tore into NASA leaders Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, accusing them of nepotism.
You are a person who can commit some of us to what we have gone through. You don't pick our calls. We don't know where to find you. Mr. Speaker, you do not pass the integrity test to represent my country or continue representing it, whether it is in EALA or this National Assembly.
For the first time, I want to thank Honorable Oburu Odinga if he's not here. I had nothing against him. If the same could have happened, if the son of President Uhuru Kenyatta was here, I could have rejected. If the brother of William Ruto could have rejected it. Speaker, it's very sad when you are a leader of a political party and a running mate, and you want to reward a slot for the rank and the file of a political party to your son.
Even if he's the son of the vice president, let him be looked upon like any other. Let the people decide when it comes to voting, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to bring political hatred. We are there to exercise the vote, Mr. Speaker. So I don't see what is wrong if Kalonzo's son is appearing on the ballot. So long as we have a choice, people will make their decision, Mr. Speaker.
Wakati tunasema tutafute kazi ya mamilioni ya Wakenya, wao wanapatia ndugu zao na dada zao na watoto wao hati vyeo. Naona juzi hata recommendation ya nani atapata kiti ya East Africa Assembly, hawana aibu. Mtu anaenda kupendekeza ndugu yake, mwingine anaenda kupendekeza mtoto yake. Sasa wewe utapata kazi siku gani?
That particular story also is what has been captured with Stano of the People Daily. We have Kalonzo here fronting his son. Son, I wish you all the best. The East African Parliament. And this is maybe a perpetuation of dynasties or dynasties, you know, in the country. Is it bad? So we are torn in. We see now it's become a political fodder for also the current administration and NASA as well. So we are torn in between. Which way to go? This is where you are on the horn of dilemma when it comes to ethical leadership, isn't it? Let's hear from Flora.
All right. I don't think, well, for me, leadership is important, and not everybody wants to lead. So when you do have one family handing over leadership to the other one, perhaps that's what they've seen, that's what they've grown up to. For me, the critical question is, more importantly, are they sincere and honest in their wanting to lead? Are they doing it for the greater good of the nation, or are they doing it for their own self-interest? Mm-hmm. So for me, as long as a leader is able to lead ethically, honestly, and able to actually do what is good, I don't necessarily see a problem. However, we then need to go back and see, was this person brought in correctly? Did they go through the normal evaluation that everybody went in, or were they sort of brought in through the back door? That is more a critical question, because we should actually vet our leaders, and I believe that's one thing we don't do too well. We should actually make sure that they are going to stand up and do what is right, because leadership sometimes does require making tough decisions, and if you're not A, up to it, B, you don't have the right outlook, you will not do what is good for the country, or for your constituents, whoever you're leading.
Or this is the first time we're hearing about Kalonzo's son really being fronted for this. He's never even, you know, vied for an MCA seat, but we want to nominate him in the EALA. Is that the way to go, Kip?
I think for me, this is really a balance between two fundamental issues. One's constitutional rights. I mean, Kalonzo's son is a Kenyan, and he's entitled to that position. I mean, if he went through due process, and like the chair of Kenya Station Manufacturers, I would like to say the issue should really be, was due process followed? And did he come on top of that due process? Of course, there will be concerns of nepotism, but I do think, I do know the young man, and I know he's gone through good schooling, and he's a qualified lawyer. But I do not know that what process his party went through to determine that he would be best suited to represent them in East African Legislative Assembly. And obviously there will be concerns about nepotism, but more importantly, I think we need to focus on the process that determined that he was the most suitable candidate.
So looking through the grid of ethical leadership, I don't know what you can deduce from this. Phyllis?
For me, this is a qualified Kenyan. He's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and he's been nominated by his party. His party must have procedures that they use definitely to arrive at the decision to nominate him. And if they can show to Kenyans that they went through that and they did it correctly, that's in order. But we can't run away from the fact that the issue of conflict of interest can be raised and is being raised by Kenyans, because this is the first time most of us have heard about Kalonzo's son, and most people are thinking he's simply there because he's Kalonzo's son, but he clearly does have the credentials to fill a position like this. So it's a delicate balance.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
All right, so do you hold with the view of the Deputy Vice President, or Deputy President, I should say, saying that, yes, this is purely nepotism? He thinks it is. What do you think?
No, I think that is basically political sound bites, the way I see it. And I agree with the other panelists. The thing we are seeing here is the end of a process. And because we are seeing the end, we are condemning the end, right? And you look at a lot of things. You look at tenders. You look at a whole host of things that are in the newspapers. What everybody's talking about is the end of the process. We never actually go in and interrogate the process that got the people there. And I think one of the good things, if you have a leader who understands the community in which they're operating, they need to understand the sensitivities that the community has. So something like this nomination, and it happens to be that your son is going to participate or something like that, I think you should talk about it way, way in advance about the process that's going to be followed, the kind of people who are going to come in and so forth and so on. But also, I think, correctly insist, as Kipper said, everybody has got a right as a Kenyan. The fact that I am Patrick Obath's son or daughter does not mean that wherever he is involved, you cannot participate. You have the right to do that. Right? There was a case that I know of Mahathir Mohammed, this is years back, when there was a large international tender floated for the building of a dam in Malaysia. And the son's company bid in the international process and won. Now all of a sudden, the international community was saying that that was rigged, that he favored his son. Yet it was conducted by an independent international body to do that. So I think people need to understand that there's a due process before they start opening their mouths and saying, this is wrong, this is unethical. You have to really look at the process, understand the process, and then talk.
Right, thank you. And of course, we want to hear from you. We'll give you this sporting chance. And I think, first of all, we'll hear from you, Patrick Obath, because you'll be leaving us also in a while because you have other engagements. So we want to talk about ethical leadership this morning and how we can develop ethical leadership in this country moving forward, because it seems maybe the populace also, once they see people doling out money, somehow they get brainwashed, you know, despite the fact that, you know, somebody is embroiled in so many issues of integrity, issues of values and morality. We still go full steam ahead. It's as if there is a confirmation bias within our heads that we don't see this person as he is, but what really the claptraps and or maybe the trappings of power and, you know, wealth around him that really blinding us. When we're talking about ethical leadership, what do we really mean? Even if we speak to Kenyans this morning and we're talking about an ethical leader, who is an ethical leader in the first place? Polycarp.
Just very quickly, three things. An ethical leader is somebody who does the right thing the right way, in spite or despite the risks that are thrown at him. It's an individual who both believes in performing, which is doing the right thing, delivering the mandate that he's been given or granted, whether it's from the public, whether it's private, and then also doing it the right way, with the right behavior, because we have far too many people who perform, but they do not behave. We also have another round of people who behave, but they do not perform. So we've got to have those two metrics moving in the right direction. And I think that's, and why do we do so? It goes back to what I said before. We must start to narrow the gap between what we say and what we do. And number one, I think to do that, we must stop coddling up to each other. And I want to weigh in on the conversation which was going on earlier and say there's an ethical leader is one who does not leave anyone behind. We have a portion of Kenya that is feeling totally excluded from the prosperity people talk to, so we lack a shared reality. If you look at our fights are, we fight because we are fratricidal in our wars, emotional, tribal, ethnic, because we lack a shared reality. So somebody at the coast says the reality of the mountain region or the reality of the lake region is not similar to this other reality. And it's our work as leaders, an ethical leader, to shepherd everybody. I'm sure you've read that story of the shepherd who left everything else to go and look for one that was left behind. I think nothing captures an ethical leader more than that story perhaps in the Bible and in religious books about a shepherd who really believes, I will not leave anybody behind. And that's why I think it's very wrong. I would not, if I was Kalonzo, I would not, if I was Raila, I would not, if I was Uhuru, nominate any of my sons to any of these things. There's a perception. Leadership is orchestrating performance and orchestrating behavior. There's a certain perception that comes along with these things. Whatever process you've used, at the end, in a country where we have too few who are, if you like, successful, and too many who are not necessarily successful, you've got to show that you're carrying everybody along. And I know that may sound very unfair to those who are few, but I think leaders just have to wake up. There must be an epiphany amongst us. We have to look at the same thing with a very different pair of eyes and start to remember that ethical leadership. Let me close by actually talking about Safaricom, who've done extremely well, the first company to cross 100 billion shillings. Recently, I got invited by Safaricom to teach a class of girls who are doing in Dadaab, refugee girls. That is called doing good. They don't need to do that. Safaricom's work is to sell voice and data. But here is a company that is willing to think about, and Safaricom's footprint in doing good in this country. So it's not a surprise that they're doing well. And I think this is the realization that a lot of us who are privileged have to ask the question the Pope asked us the other day. When you look at people who are not privileged as you, you have to ask yourself, why me? Why me? Why them, not me? And then when you do that as a leader, you then become humble and you truly serve. You start shepherding everybody, and shepherding is ethical leadership.
All right. Flora, ethical leadership. What conjures up?
What conjures up for me for ethical leadership? Let me begin by posing a question. If we look at the recently held nominations, there were about 8,000 people, I believe, who gave themselves up for leadership. It's a huge number, actually one of the biggest so far. And if we ask ourselves what percentage of those were really passionate and sincere to the community, they really wanted to serve. And if we put a real truthometer to them, testing this passion and truthometer, what would we get? My guess would be about 20 to 30% really are interested in the community. And then it poses the question, why do we then choose leaders? What is our value system when we go to choose leaders? Why do we elect them? Do we elect them on popularity? Do we elect them on wealth? Do we elect them because they give us empty promises or promises that look like they can come and change my lifestyle? Or ethnic divide? Ethical leadership, I would say, is defined as leadership in which individuals demonstrate a conduct for the common good that is acceptable and appropriate in every area of their lives. It is governed by respect, values, dignity, and the rights of others. So that if I'm a leader who disrespects other people, I cannot be called an ethical leader. If I got my leadership position by trampling on others, again, I cannot be called an ethical leader.
Thank you.